want to do some of the bigger missions in Supply or Die, and you're tired of waiting at item kiosk. You know you can mine this stuff, but where do you start? Right here. If you're like me, you really want to go do the bigger Supply or Die mission, and the money is just too good to pass up. But I don't know if you've noticed lately, they kind of tweaked the item kiosks, so they're almost unusable for the missions right now. I mean, sure, you could go stand in line for an hour at the kiosk, waiting for the refresh, and then finally get that one 8 SCU box, but when you need 29 of them, that's really not all that efficient use of a time, and quite honestly, it's going to cost you about 5 million credits to actually buy those 29 boxes. So, you know that you can actually mine for this stuff. For instance, ice. Know that you can mine in pyro. How exactly do you go about finding ice? Or for that matter, any other specific ore in Star Citizen? Well, I'm going to jump into it. Consider this a follow-on to the mining tutorials that I did a few months ago on this channel. So if you haven't checked those out, I do suggest that you go back and watch those first. But I'm going to go dive into a couple of the tools that I'm using. And I'm going to show you exactly how to find ice, because it's one of the most valuable commodities in the game right now. And trust me, it's not all that easy to find when you're mining, especially if you don't know what you're doing. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually use a tool by the name of Regolith. And I found this tool the other day, and it actually allows you to try to find the best type of asteroid in order to find exactly what you're looking for. So again, in this example, we're going to look for ice, because it's one of the major commodities that are used for the Supply or Die event that's going on right now. First off, I'm on the rock types selection here as well. That's important. You can set your filters however you actually want to set them. So for instance, I'm going to exclude Stanton because I know it's only available in Pyro. Now, I also know that ice is typically not available on the surface, so I'm going to exclude those as well. You can even see them. As you go through, you can see the different type of asteroids that you're actually looking for here. So in this case, I'm looking for ice, and it just happens to be that the only one that actually contains ice is the asteroid type of I, or the I type. Now that's pretty obvious, and you probably could have guessed that. But what is actually really important about this tool is that you can use this number here in yellow. Now, this number here in yellow is the number that you're looking for on your radar when you do a ping, and I'll show that to you in a second. Now, in this case, the number we're looking for is 1660. As you go through, you can see the different probabilities that you'll find any given thing at any different type of asteroid. So, for instance, there's a 4% chance of finding gold in an I-type asteroid. If I jump over to an E-type, there's a 29% chance of finding gold in an E-type asteroid. Now, this is important because you want to make sure that you are kind of maximizing your odds. So if I were looking for gold, I would actually want to be searching for E-type items instead of I-type items. Now you can, again, go and filter based on the different tiers up here. So if you're really just looking to make a lot of money, you're probably wanting this stuff in pink, and you want to, so we're going for Quantanium. I'm probably, again, going to be looking for the E-type. Because there's a 4% chance of actually finding it. Whereas if I were looking at asteroids and rocks that were an I-type, there's a 0% chance that I'm actually going to find those. Now that we know that we're looking for an I-type asteroid, we want to make sure that we go over to the rock locations here. Now again, we're going to filter out the surface because we really don't care about that. And what we're looking for is this column here, the I-type. So again, we know that it's not actually available in Stanton. Ice can only be found in Pyro. So what this is doing is it's basically telling us the probability of finding the asteroid of this type. So again, to maximize our odds, we want to look through this list and find the highest possible probability. That brings us to RAB, a remote asteroid base book. That's up by Terminus. I believe 16% is the highest. Well, there's actually 17% that I missed, but in my examples in the videos I'll show you in a second, 16% is what I'm going to go with, and we're going to actually be searching around RAB Cook. Now, the reason that this is super important is if you're like me, in the first 2 or 3 days that I was trying to actually mine for it, I was actually looking in the Terminus rings. I was looking in the asteroid rings around Terminus, thinking the further away from the sun that I go, the higher probability that I'm going to find ice. Well, it turns out after I found this tool that you actually can't find ice in the terminus rings. So as you can imagine, I really didn't have any luck at all. So hopefully that helps to explain exactly how you go about finding the minerals or the ores that you're actually looking for. Now the exact same thing works on the surface. So let's say, for instance, we wanted to find a granite type rock. Just off the top of my head here, 23% in Stanton at Walla is probably about as high as you're going to get. So if you're looking for a granite type rock, you want to probably go to Walla or Ita. So the combination of these two tabs really helps direct you on the best places to mine. And by going to the best places to mine, you're really increasing your chances of finding the specific thing that you're looking for. And quite honestly, maximizing your profits. Let's jump into the game and find us some ice. What I've done is I've quantum traveled over to the remote asteroid base Cook off a terminus. It's kind of up into the north of it. And what you do is just like in normal mining, you fly around and you ping. Now, a couple of important things to note. I think pinging is slightly broken in the game right now. And what I tend to do is I will switch between quantum mode, regular mode, and scan mode. I find that you actually can't find the unknowns or the ping locations here if you're in scan mode. It doesn't seem to add new ones. So you have to constantly be turning off your scanner. Now you'll see me kind of jump between the unknowns, and what I'm looking for is that number that appears right above the unknown. I want that to match that 1660 that we had talked about earlier. So as you can see, I'm going around. Now, I'll be honest, this was quite the process. It took me about half an hour to find my first asteroid. They say it's a 16% chance of finding an I-type asteroid in this area. I don't believe it. I probably checked about 100 different asteroids before I found my very first one. So what I've actually done is I kind of skipped all of that part just so you didn't have to watch me flying around pinging stuff. And I'm kind of jumping right to the good part. So in this case, I've actually found one of the I-type asteroids. Now, once you find it, it really is the same as you normally do for most mining. Kind of approach it slowly. I mean, they're pretty hard to find. The last thing you want to do is ram it and blow up your ship. But approach the asteroid slowly. Then you go through the normal process and you fracture it. You make sure that you don't have to fracture multiple times. In my case, I actually did have to fracture multiple times. But you fracture it, you extract it, you throw it in the back of your prospector or Argo Mole, whatever you happen to be using, and then you fly back and refine it. Now, the one really interesting thing about the ice asteroids that I found is the ice asteroids actually seem to contain almost 100% ice. Now, there are a couple that had less than 100%, but I find you have a much higher chance of getting just ice. And if it is something added into the ice, it's one other ore. So when you're flying out in the prospector, it's actually not all that difficult to fill the entire prospector with ice. The reason that this is beneficial is because it means that when you are headed back to the space station to refine it, you're headed back with 32 SCU, as opposed to if you're looking for, say, gold or quantanium, where you're typically headed back with, I don't know, 2 or 3 gold or quantanium. So you're actually heading back with much larger loads. Now, in my experience, it takes about half an hour to find, capture, extract, and head back with a full prospector with about 32. Once it's refined, I think that works out to be about 25 SCU, depending on the method that you're using. That means that on a per hourly basis, I'm getting about 50 SCU of ice. Now, if you look at the value of the contracts, for ice specifically, you can get to 26 million credit contract. Ice is only one of the materials you have to grab. But it means that in about 2 to 2.5 hours, you can gather all of the ice that you need for that contract. Tin is actually going to be a little bit easier. So that means that in about 4 to 5 hours, if you're actually harvesting the materials yourself, you're going to have everything that you need solo. Get 26 million credits. Right. If you want to check out my comparison between the Prospector and the Argo Mole, I suggest that you click here. Otherwise, thank you very much for tuning in today. Have yourselves a great day.